Welcome to a mini episode of Reader Seeks Romance Channel's Romance Roundup, the #1 romance book recs talk show. I am Liz Donatelli.
And I'm Libby Kay, author of the sweet romance series Buckeye Falls.
In today's mini episode, Libby and I are talking about dark romance. Liz and Libby reinvent trigger warnings and trope alerts. Watch Romance Roundup on Reader Seeks Romance Channel and subscribe on YouTube. Listen to Romance Roundup on PodBean and all podcast apps. Viewers and listeners can email us at readerseeksromance@yahoo.com. And follow us on Instagram at Libby K Author and at Reader Seeks Romance. Hello, Libby.
Hello, Liz. Welcome to our mini episode. I'm very excited.
I appreciate that you paused because I think you were going to ask how I was doing. And you stopped yourself because you know in the past I've not enjoyed being asked that question. So thank you. Let the mini episode begin.
Giddy up, Liz. Here we go. Over the holidays, I had a bunch of random thoughts, and I thought I'm going to write them down and save them for Liz in the show. And these are in no particular order. So the first thing is I'm noticing less and less books being listed as dark romance, but I feel like I'm finding more and more romances with kind of serious, not necessarily sinister, but, serious, sometimes tragic, dangerous, maybe horror, almost like backstories. And so I'm wondering, are you noticing this too? Or am I just in my own little Libby bubble and I'm just looking at different places and maybe there is still things being categorized as dark romance out there that I am just totally missing?
Could you give a few examples?
Okay. So I read, we discussed it on the last show, your favorite book of probably ever, Butcher and Blackbird. I haven't seen that necessarily marked as a dark romance. I've seen it listed as horror. I've seen it listed as, vigilante, serial killer, all the stuff that happens in the book. But it's not like it used to be. I felt like, and by back in the day, I mean, even just a couple years ago, it was like if it involved a motorcycle gang or a mobster, it was dark romance and everything else just wasn't considered dark romance. But I'm noticing there's more and more, or maybe, obviously that trilogy, but I just feel like there's things with more strong subject matter that maybe, and this is my other part of the question, are trigger warnings changing how dark romances are listed? Because I'm noticing trigger warnings even in sweet romances I read, even if something is mentioned very quickly in passing as like a backstory, there'll be part of it as the trigger warning. So I am not saying that they should be the same thing. I just feel like I'm noticing less when I'm looking on Goodreads and Amazon for books, less and less of it is being categorized as dark. And I'm wondering, is that like an industry change? Is that just tastes are changing and people don't consider stuff to be dark anymore? Is a trigger warning a catch-all?
First off, I believe that the key difference between dark romance and just romance with horrific happenings, like in Butcher and Blackbird, is a morally gray protagonist.
Okay.
So in Butcher and Blackbird, they're not, to my knowledge, and I only read 70 pages of the first book and then I called it quits. They're not morally gray. They fully embrace the criminal acts they're doing, and there's no struggling with conscience that I know of, even though it's a Dexter type of scenario where these are bad people that they're killing, but they are serial killers. And in dark romance, including motorcycle gang, mafia, although mafia is a tough one because a lot of them kill. But anyway.
See, and it is the death element or the killing element, I suppose, is that what makes it dark. And the fact that now granted, there were some moments of, I don't want to say regret in the first two of the Butcher and Blackbird books.
Yeah.
But, they had moments of conscience. So I guess, I don't know. Maybe I'm also just not following the right people or whatever to get my fix of dark romance. But I just feel like it hasn't felt the same in the last year or so.
Interesting. I haven't really noticed that, but I have noticed morally gray protagonists being mentioned more and more as a trope or as something contained in dark romance. Now, again, there's even a gray area between figuring out what's morally gray. And I think with the thing with mafia and motorcycle gangs, either the protagonists are in groups where someone else has done the killing and they haven't done the killing,
That's
or
true.
whatever killing they've done has been in the past and now they're reformed. So I feel as if there's this hope that they can be rehabilitated, or that they could turn a new leaf and be a good guy, or just work within some kind of ethics, like, the honor among thieves, kind of like
Yeah.
your own ethical, I don't know, whatever.
No,
um
no, but that make ethics, that's the best word for it. They,
yeah,
have some ethical code that they follow.
right. I mean, Butcher and Blackbird is a is an anomaly, really, because you don't
Yeah.
ever really find that much of a romance story connected to that much um
Gore.
gore and horror. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dark romance would be underplaying it. That's why, yeah, horror, romance,
Okay.
it's it.
See, and I
Yeah.
like that perspective because I didn't think of it that way. And I think, yeah, no, this is very, I like this. This is why I love talking to you because
Yeah.
it's,
Because I'm me. The stuff that I've read in dark romance and the stuff that I read in Butcher and Blackbird are very different.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. All right.
And but I have noticed trigger warnings in books I didn't expect to read a trigger warning about topics such as illness that I didn't think would necessarily be required,
But see,
but
but I had that one sweet romance I read last year by Sharon Sallet that had dealt with school shootings in
yeah.
like it wasn't just like, oh, she went through this. It was like actively happening in the book and there was no mention at all. And that was one of the things I'm like, that I felt should have had a little something at the beginning because it was just like it was just jarring.
That depends, I guess, on the publisher and the author.
That's true.
I mean, maybe if a publisher suggests a trigger warning, can an author veto it and say, well, no, I don't want that?
Oh,
It,
I didn't even think of it that way. I almost felt like
yeah.
it would be a non-negotiable, but I guess
Yeah.
you're right. It depends on the author and the publisher.
That's actually a good, we should get into trigger warnings with someone at a publisher who can explain, what's the process.
I know in the course of our book clubs and just interactions online, I've talked to different readers who some of them don't like the trigger warnings at the front of the book because they think of it as a spoiler for content that they might want to be, surprised about. Whereas others, it might be at the end. I've seen some where it says, go to the acknowledgments to see the trigger warning. So I guess it's kind of like I don't know. Everybody has a different taste and a different tolerance for things. So
Yeah.
I guess there's no perfect way to do trigger warnings, but
Right. I've never come across ones at the end. I think that's an interesting thing. Like, check the acknowledgments for the triggers.
it was an indie pub book for sure. I cannot remember who
Oh,
it was. I read it a few months ago, but I remember thinking like, oh, this is interesting because I just talked to someone else. I think at the Gramercy Book Club about they had said they were disappointed that a book they read mentioned things that were kind of part of the plot twist.
yeah.
And they weren't necessarily, I mean, to that person, they weren't heavy, but to someone else, I could see how they could be considered heavy topics.
I didn't grow up in a world of trigger warnings. I have been traumatized by episodes of Different Strokes and Webster and all those fun
Oh,
1980s
Webster.
shows.
Oh, I used to watch Webster. Oh, now I'm going to have a moment.
So I am not accustomed to being warned before traumatic content is thrown my way, but I've learned to appreciate it. And the
Hmm.
way I would prefer it would be right before the passage arrives. Like, I don't want it in the beginning because you're right. Like, sometimes it could ruin things, or it could put you off to a book, but maybe you could have handled the content, but you became scared by the trigger warning unnecessarily.
Yes. Yes.
So this is how I want my trigger warnings. I don't even want it in words. I just want pictures. Okay. So here's the thing, right before, let's say there's a big traumatic fire. Okay. And someone loses their life or something. Right before it, I want there to be just on the next page the words "get ready for it" with like a picture of flames. There's a fire coming, right? And then I read it. Or if, someone is in a car accident, get ready for it. And then there's a picture of a car and I'm like, oh no, because I don't want to know too much about the situation, but I want to know that, hey, there could be a bump up ahead in the
Yeah.
road that you want to protect yourself from. There are other alerts that would have to be treated more sensitively, but I
Mhm.
would prefer it to be not very wordy and just like in that moment, right before you mention it, tell me to like gird my loins.
All right, everyone, gird your loins.
Almost like a footnote at the beginning of the chapter, maybe.
Or a footnote. Good idea. We have to disrupt the way trigger warnings are done because I mean, at the end, it's like, who's going to turn to the end to acknowledgments? Because here's the thing. If you tell me triggers are in the acknowledgments, I'm thinking, well, the triggers must not be that bad if you're shoving it in the
That's
back.
true. That's true.
And the front can be a spoiler. So put it right before as a footnote, or just take one page, say, get ready for it, turn the page, and there it is. But here's the thing is then where do you draw the line, right? Then
Yeah. I mean, then we're doing graphics for everything. And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay.
I mean, do you have trope alerts? Like, oh, you just have get ready for it and you see a bed and you're like, oh, there's going to be a one bed scenario.
Or,
Like,
or have like a house with an X and it's like, get ready, Libby, you're going to have another homeless romance trope.
that's right. That's right. Hey, maybe the books could be tailored. If it's digital, they could be tailored to what you need to be alerted to.
Oh, you could set like a scale. Like, I want to know
Yeah.
everything or I want to know nothing. Yeah. Ooh, I like this.
That's not a bad idea for ebooks. Or if it's like, hey Liz, get ready, and it has like a picture of like baked goods, and I'm like, someone's gonna be in a bakery. Oh no, do they own a bakery? What's
Or
this
there's
about?
like a clipboard with flowers and it's like, are they a wedding planner?
That would be great to have that interactive, almost like a friend is reading it to you and
Yeah.
saying, get ready.
Get ready, Liz. There's some baking ahead. Well, thank you for humoring me on my dark romance slash trigger warning conversation, Liz. I appreciate thinking it through with you.
Yeah, I think it was fruitful.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
And that's our mini episode. Watch Romance Roundup on Reader Seeks Romance channel and subscribe on YouTube. Listen to Romance Roundup on PodBean and all podcast apps. Thanks for joining us, romance readers.
Happy reading, everyone.